Hey everybody, this is Jake Snyder and welcome to 2DS from DS. And today I wanted to talk about code quality. And I know there's a lot of you out there who, think that we all work on the most stable products known to man. But, it's kind of interesting to look at some of the strategies that people are taking with respect to their platforms and how that's impacting code quality right now. And honestly, I think across the board, code quality is pretty poor. When I mean pretty poor, I mean awful. So let's talk a little bit about the strategies people are doing. So let's talk about Aruba. And Aruba is struggling right now, like everybody else. But they're struggling because of a choice they made to rewrite their OS. OS 8's kind of a redo from the ground up, and I think, like all things, that when you go to build something brand new, it's going to have some struggles. It's like why you don't buy the first year for a truck or a car, because the first year they're working out the kinks. And I think to a large extent wireless LAN is the same way. Is when they move to a new platform or a new version, it's going to have problems, and it's going to take them some time to work those.
Message from Valerie Snyder.
Oops. So because of that, there's some things that have really kind of caused us some grief with the Aruba platform, and part of that is just the growing pains of a new OS. And I think the other thing that comes down to is that it's not just the new OS that's struggling a little bit. The 6.5.3 has been pretty bumpy from the Aruba perspective. I think a lot of that is just divided effort. New OS and new development efforts, and it's that bimodal IT thing, right? I got to maintain this thing while I'm putting all my resources towards the new thing. It is what it is. And actually, they're not doing terrible. They're getting through it. Things seem to be getting better, and there's a lot of hope and promise coming for Aruba OS 8.3. So, I think that's exciting to kind of watch that unfold with a modern OS that's capable of doing a lot more things. So let's talk about Cisco. Everyone's favorite code quality whipping boy at the moment. I'll be honest, I'm struggling with what code to run. When I start going to the TAC recommended code, and TAC recommended code is all interim releases and escalation builds with some pretty high numbers on it from a production release perspective. So like if I said it was 8.3.133, that means it's the third release or the fourth release in the 130 train, which is the MR3. So 8.3 100, so 130 means MR3. Man, 8.3 133.10 means it's the 10th kind of interim release or escalation build on top of that production release. That's discouraging. When we start seeing that, it really makes me just kind of shut down in terms of if you're not broke, don't upgrade. If there's something you're not having catastrophic bugs on, don't touch it, because we don't have a good place to take you. And I'm not saying that everyone's having problems and that everything's on fire, but here's the opposite example of I have this rather well-established operating system on these controllers, and it's starting to show its age. There's bugs. I think Cisco also changed a bunch of stuff. They new AP platforms, the Wave 2 stuff, got new OSs for the APs with the, I don't even know what they call it anymore. It was CAUS, and then it was APOS, and then I think it's Cisco operating system or something along those lines now. But their new OS, non-iOS for the Wave 2 platform, they changed a lot of things. New Wave 2 chipsets, new Wave 2 APOS. And now we're still on this legacy controller platform, which is probably, we continue to bolt more and more features into. So some of that stability problem is literally just that problem of having not invested in the other thing, or in Cisco's case, investing in that other thing and it not really pan out. So, then we look at the other option is get your product to a stable point and just never touch it again. Stop putting features in it, which I think is not. I think that's a little more towards like the Motorola side of the house. That platform is very, very stable, very, very mature. And they're still putting features in it, but that pace of evolution for that platform for Wing has really not seen a tremendous amount of changes, and I think that's actually been good for them. So when we look at these code quality issues, we're seeing that features equal bugs, and I don't know that, like right now, I worry that that's where we're living, and we're going to be living for the foreseeable future. I think these orgs like Aruba that have invested in new OS, and I think Ruckus did it a few years ago too, I think it's painful in the short term, and I think it's going to pay dividends long term for them. But like I said, it's not all sunshines and rainbows in the interim. So right now, the best advice I can give you is be careful with what you buy. If you're buying bleeding edge brand new APs, expect to run bleeding edge code and expect that bleeding edge code to have some hiccups, which sucks. I hate that conversation, but I think this is also partly a byproduct of our industry consolidation. Cisco buys Meraki, HP buys Aruba, Extreme and Terasys merge and then acquire Motorola and some Avaya networking portfolio. Fortinet and Muru, or Fortinet bought Muru. It wasn't a merger, but there's all of this consolidation happening, and I think part of it is that now these wireless companies are no longer wireless companies. The wireless is a piece of their overall networking business, and I think there's some focus loss there. So it is what it is. Our job as wireless engineers is to make this stuff work, figure out how do we get around the bugs and the problems, and where we're being successful. And in the short term, it's going to be a little painful. So, and one thing that I would like to note is that the cloud is not immune from these problems. I would say that the cloud providers continue to have challenges around some of this. Although I think largely due to their iterative process, I think they catch it earlier. They're able to course correct a lot quicker. They're able to stage rollouts so that not everyone's going all at once. They're able to get that feedback quicker. I think it is a better model, but I've had my fair share of technical challenges with cloud providers as well. So, don't feel like I'm saying don't buy traditional on-premises controllers. It's the problem is industry-wide, and I think this need of putting features on top of features on top of features in our portfolios has done nothing good for us long term. In fact, there's a lot of people discussing that the network is going to get simpler because we're going to put more of the burden onto our applications. I think I was listening to something this morning, it was probably Packet Pushers, about the network's going to get simpler because we're going to make the apps do all the things that the networks are struggling and failing to do well. And I kind of agree. It's like, let's take these features out of the network. I don't need the network to be able to do MDNS stuff. I need the app to be smarter. So I think if we get away from features, I think these people who are making equipment are going to have to come to some pretty hard choices about what features are real and what features need to be left behind because they're holding us back. And my hope is things like Cisco's DNA and SDA specifically, where they're DNA too, but where they're doing the things where they're configuring the networking equipment based on what we want it to do. I think those are going to be good things, because we're going to find that we're not going to have the nerd knobs to go tweak and touch and tune and do all of this stuff through a lot of that canned setup, which, you know, as a guy that enjoys the nuance of those nerd knobs, I think for the masses that, you know, if everyone deploys it this way and we test that this works, I think long term we're going to get to a point where things will get more stable. It's a tough way to get there, but I have hope. I guess I do have some hope. You know, it's not doom and gloom. Things will get there. You know, new OSs will get sorted out over time. These automated staging and provisioning using common sets of configurations are going to get us partway there. And part of it's just going to be, you know, the MVP model continues to bite us in the in terms of, oh, sorry, I guess I shouldn't say that. Continues to bite us in the butt around releasing products too soon, before they're ready, before they're fully baked, and expecting customers to beta test and test them at scale without compensating them for it. Honestly, I'm you know, I look at some of the challenges some of my friends in this industry have had, where, you know, they operate at massive scales, and because of those scales they find the bugs that only show up at scale. And, you know, is it right that they are stuck finding these bugs and dealing with it, and the hundreds of hours of labor that goes into driving that to resolution for their organizations? Man, it would sure be nice if there was some, like, hey, we're gonna every time you have to go through this exercise, we're gonna chop a point of cost out of your next order, and you may be getting crap for free after that, because guess what, you put in the time. You're helping them drive their product forward. So like I said, in the short term, things are rough, and it's the nature of where we're at, I think, right now, and maybe in the future that looks better. So, well, I'm not quite to work, I'm close, but I think I've kind of wrapped up this topic, and that dead horse has been tenderized quite well. So I will let you guys get on with your day. This is Jake with 2DS from DS, and you guys have a great week.